Cool. So we're making a recording right now, and what we're working on is just some video for to introduce some of these classes that we're going to be teaching at Ivy Tech. We're going to put it on YouTube, and then we'll make it available in your discussion boards and all that kind of thing. Some of my main things is like evidence. We're going to talk a little bit about lineups, okay? So in a lineup, and Bill, you can just, chirp up anytime you want. There's a lot of problems with eyewitness testimony we're finding out. In fact, there's over 300 people that were on death row that were released from prison because of DNA, okay? So how could that happen in this country? As wonderful as this country is, it's a free country, and I'm not being facetious. I really believe it. But, how can we have this big failure in our court system? That's a good question, Well, the big problem is in eyewitness identification, okay? All right, so a lot of times you get into like testimony and things, people get confused, they're not trained, policemen, so they just wander onto the scene, they stumble into it, they're surprised, they don't know what they're doing, and so that's just a pure failure, a negligence or a mistake or an accident. Someone accidentally identifies someone as being a criminal when they aren't the criminal, okay? Studies that I've read by people at IU would indicate that happens about 5% of the time, is because when you compound all the evidence together, the eyewitness testimony is only a part of the evidence. So if there's no other evidence that points to this defendant other than the eyewitness testimony, it's pretty shaky. If all it is eyewitness testimony, there can actually be about a 50-50 chance that you're convicting the wrong person, okay? So that's why it's so important when we talk about lineups, and that's, if we can remember, that's what we were talking about when we first started on this topic. So, in a lineup, you got a guy like this, and he's standing here. No, that's not right. Oops. There's a guy like this, and there's another guy like this, and a guy like this, and they're standing in a lineup, okay? And so one guy's got a shaggy beard, okay? One guy's got like a lot of hair. Okay, Bill, what's wrong with this lineup like this?
They're not like characteristics.
Yeah, they've got to be similar, okay? So you want these people to be just as similar as you possibly can, And so, they've all got to be the same basic type of physical structure. You got one guy's got a big belly on him like me. Well, that's not going to work, And another thing is, so in other words, what we want to make sure is that when the person's picking them, these people are as close to the same. And another key thing is they've got to fit the description that was given. You can't just pull anybody in and put them in a lineup. Just say, well, the usual suspects. Well, let's just get 6 black guys and put them in a lineup. That's no good. But that is exactly what happened in the case of Powell versus Alabama. Go down and get those black boys down there in, Alabama, and let's line them all up. And not only beyond that, they sweat them real bad, and they beat on them and stuff, and they extracted confessions from some of them and so forth. So, I mean, that's just way over the top, Powell versus Alabama. We just stay clear away from that. But, there is a lot of these type of situations when you get into this. You can also have issues where we have what we call a photo ID, okay? So let's say we're putting 3 people, we're putting a photo of 3 people on here, and okay, we got a little smiley face on this one and this one, and oh, what's that there? That's not it. So basically, and then all of a sudden, we got this guy. here again, got the long hair. You know, he's got tattoos, you know, all this writing on his arms and stuff. And, you know, he doesn't look the same in a picture, okay? So here again, that's a problem. It's not good. Well, I had another case one time where, and it's going to be a little hard to represent on something like this. I had two guys, and they took their picture, and here's the U.S. flag in the background, okay? Okay, so then superimposed over top of that is the guy, okay? So here's two like this, okay? And this is the guy's face, okay? So it's tough to do to get the idea. And here's another totally different guy standing in front of a green wall, okay? So who does the eye get drawn to when you're looking at these? Wouldn't you think that the person will be drawn to the one that's got the most color and there's more going on in the picture? Where you got the flag in the background, in other words? So it's a setup. I mean, basically these kids were set up. And guess what happened? Whole case got thrown out. So basically, you know, these are problems that come in. Now, third type of lineup I want to talk about is the show up. Now these are very rarely used today, but used to be used a lot when I was young, okay? What's a show-up lineup? Well, let's say that a woman's been raped, she's in the hospital, she's in the emergency room, she's all upset, she's very agitated, she's being worked on by doctors, she's in really unfamiliar surroundings, she's under a lot of stress, you know, she may be in shock right now, okay? Well, here they come walking in with this guy by the thumb or the ear or whatever, dragging him in. Come on in here. Take a look at this guy. You know, so here they are, just traumatized, just being any old guy in there. Is this the guy that did it? You know, and so it's just a one-time, there's no choices. It's just that person. Is this the guy that did it? This is highly irregular, not accepted in a lot of courtrooms in America today. Although it was done frequently, way back. I mean, I'm talking from the 19th century up until the early 20th century, up until you know, my day when I started, which was, there were electric lights when I started, contrary to many of your beliefs. Okay, so basically, early on though, they were still doing that in the 60s and 70s, where they'd drag people in. Is this the guy? You know. And that was not very helpful. Another thing that comes up that I've seen in court many times is where you'll have, you know, a good lawyer reads through everything, and you'll have statements in that file from witnesses, and the witnesses often say, well, no, I don't think I can identify the guy because he was wearing a mask. Okay, which, you know, kind of makes sense, okay? Well, you bring him in the courtroom, what's the first thing they ask him? Do you see the man in the courtroom that robbed you? Well, yes, he's sitting next to the man in the suit. Well, I mean, you can really make hay as a defense attorney if you just go right back. Now, you remember making a statement to the police right after the incident? Yes. What were your very first words to the police officer? Isn't it true you said, I don't think I can ever identify the man who robbed me because he was wearing a mask? You know, one time 6 people were in a store. They were robbed by 2 guys. Every one of those 6 people said the same thing. I don't think I can identify the guy because he was wearing a mask. Every single one, okay? So they trot them all in the jury trial. Put him in the chair. First thing they ask him, do you see the man in the courtroom that robbed you? Why, yes, he's sitting next to the man in the suit. Well, like I said, it was just like, you know, knocking rocks off of a tree stump or something. You know, it was easy, you know. Well, now, don't you remember making a statement to the police officers right after the incident? Yes. What did you say? Well, I don't likely remember. Well, isn't it true that you said, I don't think I can ever identify the guy? Okay, what has happened between then and now that suddenly you think you can identify the guy when, as just within minutes after the incident, you couldn't identify the guy? Do you think your memory gets better as time goes by? Well, yes, it does. I actually had people say that. Well, who really believes that? Nobody. But too often, young lawyers especially, will jump ahead and they'll want to get involved in all this stuff down further in the case when you need to take care of the basics. Just those little things like that. And so when you get into these things with lineups, you get into these things with eyewitness testimony, very, very shaky. Guess who it is? It's Brandy.
Oh my.
Okay, well anyway, so you get the idea.
Sure. Now let's see when you hook it up to the computer.
Okay, yeah. And you know, I don't know if I can figure out how